We're joined now by the chairman of the Arewa Economic Forum, Ibrahim Dandakata. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. Good to see you again. I wonder what you make of this leaked documents. Well, hearing from Bayo Nonuga, Special Advisor on Information, it's not like it's a fake document. It's just unofficial. It's not been, officialized, if you like. But let's look at some of the recommendations in it. But let's get your thoughts on this leakage at all. Should it even be happening?
I think we just signed, the president just signed the data protection law in Nigeria, right. And I think the federal government should hold itself, #1, accountable for any breach of data. And I think some companies have been penalized for this kind of breaches, and I think the government should do something very well and very fast on this kind of breaches that we get in our... I mean, if you can get a breach in this kind of situation, you don't know what's happening in other sectors of the federation, and you understand our security and other things, and maybe that's the reason why we couldn't get anything right.
Mm.
Well, I think you're not far from the truth. There's a data protection, act, which... But again, let's get into the meat of it all. That is before us, because sometimes, who knows, even though we try not to speculate, what if this was deliberately pushed out there to get this conversation? Let's start talking about it. It's out there already. Now, looking at the details, what first came to mind when you stumbled on it?
Well, I think the last time I was here, we discussed about what the Minister of Economic Coordination is doing, because basically it looks like there's no coordination in everything that we're talking about. The documents talk about fuel subsidy. The government said that there's no fuel subsidy, and they are not going to, categorically they've said several times that they're not going to go back on that issue of fuel subsidy. But we all know that the landing cost of PMS in Nigeria is beyond 1,000 naira. So, and it's being sold below 1,000 naira. So who is chasing the difference? That's #1. Secondly, the agricultural policy which this federal government, this current administration, campaigned on, food security was mentioned severally. And now it looks like they can't get to they can't get anything right about the issue of agricultural policy or agricultural production. Federal government is saying that it's going to allow for the importation of food stuff. The agricultural equipment is all right, but the food stuff is something that what are we doing to boost agricultural production in Nigeria? What are we doing to ensure that our farmers are not pauperized? What are we doing to ensure that we are not dumped with GMO crops and such like? And so far, the federal government has said that they have spent over 300 billion in this 1 year, and more than $100 million on agricultural production. Yeah. So where is that money? We are supposed to see. I mean,
you should know. So beyond asking the government, look, where is this? What is this? Can we begin to break it down in terms of solutions? Can we begin to prefer solutions on the issue of, especially the agriculture sector, without accepting that this document really is genuine or not? Can we help government in terms of how to move forward on some of these policies, customs tariffs, fuel subsidy, and other economic issues, including agriculture?
Subsidy, one thing I keep on asking is that what mechanism or system is the federal government using to bring PMS into Nigeria? When Mekantubaru was the MD, the late Mekantubaru, we heard about the crude swap. And after the crude swap, we haven't heard anything about the mechanism that NNPCL is using to bring the PMS. There's no subsidy on all petroleum products. It's only the PMS that was removed last, and that was what brought about all this brouhaha. Now, we keep on asking a simple question. Fuel is just one component out of the different components that comes up to create the fare. You understand?
Yes.
Motor fare. Whether
petrol.
Petrol is just one component. Energy is just one component. We have the depreciation cost of the vehicle, maintenance cost of the vehicle, labor cost of the driver. Then there's fuel. Just fuel is one component. No, we don't know what percentage it constitutes, but NURTW and NATO are in a position to tell us what it constitutes, and the Minister of Transport is in a position to tell us. The Federal Consumer Protection Council is in a position to tell us what percentage fuel constitutes in calculating the fare of it. And what we expect the federal government to do is, when it's removing the fuel subsidy, they're supposed to sit down with the organized labor and say that, okay, we're increasing the cost of this particular component in your calculation of fare. So if you are going to increase transport cost, you are going to increase it based on the percentage increase in this fuel, which is a component of the total components that makes up the cost. But nothing was done. In Abuja, for example, transport fare was increased by more than 100%. Yeah. Just because of PMS. And PMS is not the only component that makes up the fare. So what we expect the federal government and all the agencies that are under it is to sit down with this organized labor and come up with a nationwide policy on how much people are supposed to charge on long distance, short distance, per kilometer, just like Uber and others do. You understand what I'm saying? And that will mitigate all these inflationary pressures unnecessarily. Because if you look at the way things are, the cost of things are rising, there is no fundamentals behind it. Now, on the issue of the agricultural policy, yes. If you're going to focus on subsistence farming, you're going to focus only on employment creation. You're not going to create any value of huge production, because as at now, we don't have that mechanism. We are not primed for the mechanism for making subsistence farmers to increase production. Like I said the other time, in Southeast Asia, they have small holdings, but they have a great network of what do you call extension workers, who helps the farmers with improve ways of farming. In Nigeria, we don't have that. So I think the only panacea that we have, I think it should be looking at the large commercial farms that are lying fallow, that are owned by former governors, former ministers, former senators, former generals, that are lying fallow, thousands of hectares that are not being put under cultivation. If you follow Kaduna Abuja Road, you see so many of them. Anywhere you go in this country, you see these huge tracts of land, thousands of hectares that are not put into use for agriculture. People are looking for land to produce, but these people are cornering this land. So I think what needs to be done is that federal government should engage these people, because they have a union. They should engage these people and look at individual cases and see what they can do to make those farms viable and productive.
I see two key things you've raised here. First, you don't believe that fuel subsidy is gone. And secondly, and you still think that something should be done. Still on this fuel subsidy, let's bring in what the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has said as he's asked the National Assembly to investigate the alleged secret petrol subsidy payment by President Bola Tinubu's administration. In a statement, his media advisor Paul Ibe also urged President Tinubu's government to demonstrate bravery in taking ownership of its policies and their consequences by being accountable to Nigerians. In the meantime, the main opposition, that's the PDP, has demanded that President Tinubu immediately clears the air by ordering a public inquiry into the reported 5.4 trillion naira fuel subsidy paid under his watch, despite announcing at the end of the payment of petrol subsidy last year. So it comes back to you, just like Atiku Abubakar, you still categorically, strongly believe that the government is paying subsidy on petrol.
I didn't say that the government is paying subsidy, but what I said is that it's common knowledge that the landing cost of PMS is beyond what's being retailed at. So there is a gap between what the cost of PMS at filling stations is and what the landing cost is, based on our currency, the value of our dollar, currency exchange in dollar, and the value, the cost of refined petroleum products in the international market. Global. And that's the reason why I raised the issue of NNPC should be transparent enough to tell us what system it's using to import this PMS into this country. Because there was this issue of crude swap, and it was explained to us that it's supposed to ensure supply and cheap availability of this product. Now, if the crude swap has been stopped, let us know exactly what system is being used to import PMS, in the sense that we will know exactly whether government is paying subsidy or not. Are we selling our domestic allocation of crude, or is federal government using our resources to buy PMS to bring into the country? Whatever it is, we need to know, because that will determine to a very large extent, in fact conclusively, whether federal government is paying subsidy or not. Very
quickly, before we let you go, the planned suspension of import duties on food, drugs and all of that, how is that likely to impact, especially the food aspect? How will that impact the local agriculturists?
There are so many foreign countries, especially European countries, that want to come to Nigeria and dump agricultural produce. Most of the time, most of these things are brought from their strategic reserves that have been there for 5, 7 years, or even 10 years. So they are looking for a way to dispose of it, and they bring it to Nigeria. And there are so many unscrupulous businessmen in Nigeria that will go and do that and import those kind of. All we need is the vigilance of our agencies to make sure that they get the right thing. But on the issue of how it's going to impact on the cost of production in these countries that are primed to let this come to our country is ridiculously low compared to what we are going to in Nigeria. So I mean, price will be so low that it will dampen production in Nigeria. I mean, if you have rice coming into Nigeria at less than 3,000 or 5,000 naira, or let's say at 15,000 naira, what will be the fate of all them?
If you were in the position, what would you do to address the issue of food insecurity in Nigeria?
Well, as at now,
both in the
because of
medium
the medium, short and medium is to allow for targeted importation of food for a certain period of time, not to liberalize the whole thing. Because Nigeria has a capacity to estimate how much it needs to bridge the gap between now the beginning of rainy season and what's going to happen after the rainy season. And the federal government should put in place all the resources that are needed to make for a bumper harvest. So we do that, we do the second one, and definitely we are not supposed to continue importing food items into Nigeria. So that should be the short term and medium term. On the long term, there should be a comprehensive policy on agriculture in Nigeria, short term and subsistence agriculture and commercial agriculture. And as at now, it's stopgap measures at all levels. Like just therefore yesterday, the National Dairy Policy was launched, and if you go through the document, you find that there's no framework. It's just normal rehashing of stories that have been there before. You're talking about establishing dairy marketing board, dairy fund. They are supposed to come together with the launching, not putting them for only God knows which time. So consistently, as we said, the federal government of this country is not doing what's supposed to be doing in terms of the economy of the country, in terms of production in the country, most especially in agriculture that affects about 75% of the population. No matter what you are in one way or the other directly related to agriculture.
In 10 seconds, is your economic team sending any kind of proposal or suggestion to help the government?
As at now, we are trying to work with certain government agencies toward creating what we call the Agricultural Summit in Northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is the food basket of the nation, and we are looking towards doing the Agricultural Summit. And we are trying to get away from direct government involvement. We are trying to go towards the PPP model and making sure that private capital is employed, private capital and expertise is employed into mass production in agriculture.
Fantastic, and that's a good drive.
That's the Arewa Economic Forum doing that.
Yes, okay, great, super. Ibrahim Dandakata is the chairman, Arewa Economic Forum.